Your phone is in your hand, you're scrolling, you don't care about food safety videos, you don't care about Lagos folktales, you're about to swipe past this, but wait. These are not kind hands, these are hands that know secrets. This is Mama Titi, she's wearing a black wrapper and her eyes, God, her eyes, they're glowing with something that isn't human, something that belongs in nightmares. My mother's power is strong, Mama Titi whispers to herself, and her voice sounds like she's been smoking for 100 years. The ancestors are watching. She moves toward a large aluminium bowl filled with freshly ground beans. This is what MOI-MOI is made from. This is what thousands of Lagos residents are eating right now. This is what you might have eaten this morning. Mama Titi begins to pour. The contaminated liquid mixes with the innocent beans. Grey water, corpse water, water that has touched death itself, now entering food that will enter bodies, enter minds, enter families. There's a smile there, not a smile of joy, a smile of pure, calculated evil, a smile that says, I know what I'm doing and I don't care. They will keep coming, she whispers, her voice dripping with dark satisfaction. They cannot stop eating, they will not want to eat from anyone else. My MOI-MOI is the only MOI-MOI in Lagos now. She throws her head back and laughs, a laugh that sounds like something ancient crawling out of a grave. Fola presses herself against the concrete wall outside, her entire body trembling. Her eyes are the size of plates. Her hand covers her mouth to muffle the gasp that nearly escaped. What she has just witnessed isn't just a crime. It's something worse. It's witchcraft. It's poison. It's systematic evil. She knows. And now, so do you. The story doesn't start with evil. It starts with desperation. 5 years before that moment in the kitchen, Mama Titi was sitting on a wooden bench outside a house in Bariga that wasn't hers. She was renting a single room for 15,000 naira a month, money she didn't have. Her son, Toby, was 30 years old and unemployed. Her husband had died 7 years prior under circumstances that no one dared to discuss. The neighbors whispered that he had opposed family business, but no one spoke it aloud. Mama Titi was making MOI-MOI from her tiny room, selling it to neighbors, making barely enough to eat. Some days, she and Toby would share one bowl between them. Some days, there was nothing. She would watch the other women in the neighborhood, women with nicer wrappers, women with gold jewelry, women whose children went to private schools. Those women all seemed to be doing something she wasn't. They had secrets, they had money, they had power. One afternoon, her childhood friend Iyabo stopped by. Iyabo had changed. 5 years ago, they had been equal, same level of poverty, same struggles, same dreams, but now Iyabo was different. Her wrapper was Ankara, expensive Ankara. Her blouse had embroidery work that cost thousands. Her skin glowed with the kind of health that comes from eating well. Titi, Iyabo called out, embracing her. My God, look at you, you are still suffering like this. Mama Titi felt shame burn her cheeks. The business is slow, Iyabo, very slow. Toby cannot find work. We are managing, but it is hard. Iyabo sat down beside her, and her expression became serious. Listen to me, Iyabo said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. I'm going to tell you something that only a few people know, something that could change your life. But you have to promise me, you have to swear asterisk, that you won't tell anyone I told you. Mama Titi's heart began to race. What is it? Iyabo moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Everybody is doing it now. Everybody. The successful women in this area, the ones with money, the ones with nice things, they all use the same method. We add something special to our food, something that makes people addicted, something that makes them keep coming back again and again, unable to go to anyone else. Mama Titi's eyes widened. What do you mean, something special? What kind of something? Spiritual power, Iyabo said simply. You use rituals, you use items that carry spiritual weight, and once you do it, your business will boom. I'm telling you, Titi, I went from eating once a day to eating 3 times a day in 6 months. My children now attend private school. My husband, the one I told you about, he bought me a plot of land. But Iyabo, Mama Titi said hesitantly, isn't that wrong? Iyabo laughed, a laugh that sounded exactly like Mama Titi's would later sound in her kitchen. Wrong, Iyabo repeated. Titi, what is wrong is suffering when you don't have to. What is wrong is watching your son go hungry. What is wrong is being poor when you could be rich. This is business. This is survival. This is the way the world works now. Mama Titi sat in silence for a long moment, wrestling with herself. How would I even do this? She finally asked. Iyabo smiled, a smile that was both kind and predatory. I have a friend who knows someone, a person who can teach you the rituals. My mother's mother used to do this, you know. It was passed down in my family. Now it's passed down to my friends. But you need someone on the inside, someone who works at a place where materials are available. What kind of materials? Mama Titi asked, though part of her already knew. The kind you get from dead things, Iyabo said bluntly. The kind that carry spiritual weight because they come from the veil between worlds. Hospitals, mortuaries, places where the dead are kept. That's where the power lives, Titi. That's where you find what you need. The words hung in the air between them like poison gas. Over the next 2 weeks, Iyabo came to see Mama Titi 3 times. On the second visit, she brought a woman named Mama Folklore, a woman in her 60s who had been doing the business for over 30 years. Mama Folklore's face was scarred with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about money again. The rituals are simple, Mama Folklore told Mama Titi in hushed tones, sitting in the tiny room. Your mother, your grandmother, did they ever mention doing anything like this? Mama Titi's blood went cold. My mother, yes, my mother used to say things, strange things. She had a journal. I found it after she died, but I burned it. I was afraid. Mama Folklore nodded knowingly. That fear is exactly why you're poor now. Your mother passed down a gift, and you rejected it. Now you have a chance to reclaim it. She produced a small leather pouch from her wrapper and set it on the table. Inside this is everything you need to know, Mama Folklore said. The words to speak, the days to perform the rituals, the materials to use, but most importantly, you need someone who works at a mortuary or a hospital, someone with access. My son, Mama Titi heard herself say, Toby, he has been looking for work. Perfect, Mama Folklore said, and she smiled like a spider that had just caught a fly. How much is his salary going to be? I don't know, maybe 40,000 naira a month, if he can find work. Tell him, Mama Folklore said, that Iyabo has a connection. Tell him there's a job waiting for him at the General Hospital mortuary. The pay is 50,000 naira a month, no questions asked. And tell him that he will understand his responsibility the moment he starts. Mama Titi felt something inside her die and be reborn as something else, something darker. If I do this, she said slowly, if I use the materials, what happens to the people who eat the food? Mama Folklore's expression didn't change. They become devoted. They become addicted spiritually and physically. They cannot eat from anyone else. They come back again and again, spending money, telling their friends, bringing their families. Your moi-moi becomes the only moi-moi that matters to them. Within 6 months, you will have more customers than you can handle. Within a year, you will be wealthy. But they will be poisoned, Mama Titi said, her voice very small. They will be fed, Mama Folklore corrected her. Isn't that what you do? You feed people. It's not your fault if they become addicted. That's their weakness, not your evil. The rationalization sounded reasonable in that moment. It would sound reasonable many more times over the next 5 years. Toby got the job at the mortuary exactly 1 week later. When he came home that first day and Mama Titi explained to him what he would be doing, really doing, beneath the surface of his official job description, he didn't protest. He was too hungry. He was too tired of being poor. He was too young to understand the weight of the choice he was making. I will do it, Mama, he said simply, whatever it takes. Mama Titi performed the ritual for the first time on a Friday night. She locked the door to her room, burned the items in the leather pouch, spoke the words that were written in the journal, and poured the first batch of contaminated water into ground beans. The transformation was immediate. By Monday, her customers had doubled. By the end of the week, they had tripled. Women who had never bought from her before were suddenly showing up, asking for her moi-moi specifically, unable to explain why they wanted it so badly. They just knew they needed it. Within 3 months, Mama Titi had moved to a bigger space. Within 6 months, She had hired 2 assistants. Within a year, she was wealthy. Toby's role became more defined and more sinister. He wasn't just collecting water from the mortuary, he was selecting it carefully. Water from corpses that had died violently. Water from young bodies. Water that, according to the rituals, carried the most spiritual weight. He would come home with the jerrycans, and his mother would perform the rituals, and their customers would keep. They never spoke about what they were doing, not really. It was easier not to speak about it. Easier to pretend that they were just making good food. Easier to count the money and buy new wrappers and pay for better housing and plan for a future that was built on something rotten. But Toby began to change. He became quieter. His eyes developed a haunted quality. He started drinking more. He had nightmares that woke him up screaming. He would ask his mother in moments of weakness, "Do you think the people we are poisoning, do you think they know?" Mama Titi would pat his head like he was a child and tell him not to think such thoughts. Toby met Folklore 3 years into the dark business. She was a nurse at the same hospital where he worked. She was beautiful, kind, genuinely good in a way that made Toby feel like a monster whenever he was near her. He fell in love with her, and in his love, he began to wish he could be someone else, someone better, someone not complicit in poisoning his entire community. But he didn't leave, he didn't confess. He just lived a double life, hating himself more with each passing day. Folklore never suspected anything, until the day she decided to surprise Toby at work and followed him to his mother's house. It was supposed to be a romantic gesture. It became a nightmare. She watched him hand over the jerrycan. She watched Mama Titi's ritual. She heard the words being chanted. She saw the evil smile on a woman's face that Toby loved, and the realization that the man she loved was part of it nearly destroyed her. That night Folklore didn't sleep. She didn't eat. She didn't speak to Toby when he called. She sat in her small room and made a choice that would echo through the rest of her life. The next morning, Folklore did something that terrified her. She bought a phone that Toby had never seen. She went to Mama Titi's house, smiled through the pain, helped with the preparations, and waited. When Toby arrived with the morning shipment, her phone was already recording. She captured everything: the handing over of the jerrycan, the ritual, the chanting, Mama Titi's words, "The ancestors are pleased, they will keep coming, they will not be able to stop." When she had the video, Folklore's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the phone. That afternoon, she went to the police station. The officers didn't believe her at first. The video looked fake to them, like something from a Nollywood film. But when they examined the jerrycan label, when they heard Mama Titi's voice chanting, something in their expressions changed. "We need to move fast," the senior officer said, "before they destroy evidence." By that evening, police were surrounding Mama Titi's house. They found the hidden compartment beneath the kitchen, 30 jerrycans, hundreds of customers documented in Mama Titi's journal, names, dates, notes about spiritual power, calculations of profit. The arrest was swift and brutal. When Toby realized it was Folklore who had reported him, his entire world collapsed. He broke down in the police station, and in breaking, he confessed everything. He told them about the rituals. He told them about the spiritual manipulation. He told them about the customers who had become addicted. He told them about his own father, who had opposed the family business and had died under mysterious circumstances. The case exploded across Lagos. The trial was televised. Millions of people watched as Mama Titi and Toby stood before the judge, accused of conspiracy, poisoning, practicing witchcraft without a license, and endangering public health. The prosecutor was merciless. "These 2 individuals," he declared, pointing at them, "took something as sacred as food, as necessary as nourishment, and they weaponized it. They took their own community and they made them into addicts. They poisoned the bodies and minds of thousands of people for profit. They are not business people. They are not misguided. They are predators." Mama Titi's defense was that she had done nothing wrong, that feeding people was not a crime, that if they became addicted, that was their weakness, not her fault. The judge listened impassively. When the verdict came down, the courtroom erupted. Mama Titi, 15 years in prison. Toby, 12 years in prison. As the sentence was read, Toby wept. His body shook with sobs so violent that guards had to hold him up. Mama Titi sat rigid, her face a mask, her eyes empty. Fola sat in the back of the courtroom, and she cried too, not for Toby, but for the man she thought he was, and who he had never actually been. Weeks after the conviction, investigators expanded their search. They discovered that Mama Titi had been operating this business for over 40 years of poisoning. They found evidence that her mother had done the same thing, that her grandmother had done it, that this was not a sudden descent into evil, but a family legacy of darkness passed down through generations like an inheritance. They traced the practice to a network. Iyabo, who had introduced Mama Titi to the dark business, was arrested. Mama Folake, who had trained her, was arrested. Dozens of other women were arrested. Dozens of mortuaries and hospitals were implicated in supplying contaminated materials. What had seemed like one woman's crime became a revelation of something systemic, something that had been poisoning Lagos for decades. Customers came forward with their stories. An elderly woman who had eaten Mama Titi's moi-moi every day for 5 years and had developed tumors that doctors couldn't explain. A child who had become almost psychologically addicted, unable to function without the food. A man who had spent his family's savings on Mama Titi's moi-moi, driven by something he couldn't control or understand. The spiritual component was investigated by scholars and priests, who confirmed that the rituals were indeed designed to create psychological and spiritual dependency, a form of control that operated on levels beyond the physical. Now you know, the narrator's voice says, calm now but heavy with weight. You know what happened in Lagos, you know what Mama Titi did, you know what Toby allowed, you know what Fola risked to stop them, you know the truth about the moi-moi, about the mortuary water, about the poisoning of an entire community. So here is your final choice. Will you subscribe and be part of a community that demands truth and justice? Will you be someone who stands against deception? Or will you scroll away, pretend you never saw this and let darkness win? The choice belongs to you, but make it mean something. Subscribe now, and if you can't, go to the comments and tell us why. We're listening, we're always listening, because stories like this, stories of evil and redemption, of community and betrayal, they matter. They change people, they change cities, they change the world. Don't let this one pass you by.